Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. That's a quote that goes back to Margaret Mead. I don't know who she is, but it's a pretty poignant statement. And it reminds me of what Malcolm X said when he said, "We're not outnumbered, we're out-organized." And I think really that Muslims need to take heed of some of the mindset that's going on here, which is that we as Muslims, we see that we are so incapable. We see that we are so disempowered. And yet, we're not few. We're 2 billion in the world. And somehow, much smaller groups of people, Americans, I mean, there's only like a few 100 million Americans. Jewish people, there's less than 20 million Jewish people. Other interest groups can get their way in the world, and we can't. You know, out of pretty much any way you can group human beings according to specific in-groups, Islam is probably the biggest. The problem is that Muslims don't see themselves as an in-group. Muslims don't see themselves anymore as having a shared goal or a shared purpose that we ought to organize ourselves according to. And that is what I see over and over again, even among practicing Muslims, because when Islam is secularized, that doesn't mean that people stop practicing it as a religion. In fact, that means that becomes their only engagement with Islam. It becomes the prayers and becomes making more adhkar and going to the masjid and bonding with other Muslims on that basis. However, it ceases to be something which we imagine as having to come together on as a project. And so otherwise practicing Muslims become confused when people like myself insist on the need for organized efforts to establish the mission of Islam, which I've spoken about many times on this channel, an Islamic civilization which lives according to the law of God. For our interests to be represented in the world, for us to shape the world according to what we think is right, what God and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam have taught us is right. And we can do it. Success has principles. There's ways things get done. And we don't have a shortage of manpower, we don't have a shortage of resources, we don't have a shortage of intelligence, of talent. We have a shortage of will. We have, and this is interesting because if you look at how the political scientists define when a country loses a war against another country, it always comes down to the will to continue fighting. It's not about lost tanks, it's not about the number of casualties, it is not about conquered territory. It is about one country's will, psychological will, to continue the fight. And we as an ummah, despite all of our blessings, we don't have the will. And oftentimes, like I mentioned, it's because we don't even know that there's something to fight for. We see ourselves as individualized Muslims, and as an individualized Muslim, your responsibility to God is to pray, to fast, to keep your own faith, your own connection with God. But then the rest of the world around us barely ever interacts with this personal, ritualized relationship with God. Whereas in reality, if you understood Islam comprehensively, if you understood Islam the way the Prophet ﷺ taught his Sahaba Islam, you would understand that your Islam is your mission for how you interact with the world, with how you shape the world. It is a project that is it is not a worldly project in the sense that the overall outcome that we seek to gain from this mission is Jannah. It is, however, a mission which is intimately connected with results in this world, because it is through the pursuit of the results in this world of establishing justice, of establishing God's law, of shaping the world to be better than it was yesterday, that we attain Jannah. It is not enough to be a righteous man in the company of sinners, to be a godly man in a degenerate society. and expect that God will save you, to expect that you will be awarded paradise, because a Muslim is somebody who is not just righteous on his own. A Muslim is somebody who does righteousness to others, who spreads righteousness, who reforms those around him. And that is the example of all the prophets. That is really what they were sent for. And a Muslim is somebody who strives to emulate the prophets in all of what they did. So I really go back to what I started with. I was just really trying to diagnose why we're not organized, why we're not committed, why we don't have that thoughtfulness about our mission. It really does all come back down to the secularization of the Muslim mind. We don't think we have anything to organize for. And when we do organize, it is for more limited missions, for more limited projects. Let's start a masjid. Okay, we can organize a masjid board. Let's start an Islamic school. Okay, we can organize for an Islamic school. But can we build the relevant institutions and networks and projects that are actually going to create a civilizational impact in the ummah? It's not going to cut it to just build another masjid. We need to build all of what a nation requires, networks of different kinds of influentials. We need to build institutes of film. We need to build institutes of scientific study, of scholarly production, those that will result in real political change in the ummah. And I end with that. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.